you have to challenge thought, not the thinker. You challenge the process, not the person. It needs to be about the work.
Welcome to episode 225 of the Pathways to Success, where we have conversations with inspiring leaders about their business and keys to success. I'm Julian Placino, your host, and we have another great show in store for you today. It is my pleasure to welcome Amy Wheelus, Chief Technology and Information Officer at Gigapower. Amy, welcome to the Pathways to Success.
Thank you, Julian. It's good to be here. Really excited to get to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, likewise. I've been looking forward to this, and I know the team here has as well. So let's jump in. So Amy, you are the CTIO at Gigapower. If you would share with us all, what is Gigapower?
Gigapower is a wholesale fiber broadband company. We're a fiber broadband network provider. And yesterday, we celebrated our 5-month anniversary. So we are a very new company. We're a joint venture that was created by AT&T and BlackRock. And so you're probably saying, okay, what does a wholesale fiber optic network provider do? We build and operate fiber networks to provide broadband services for consumers and businesses. We're a US-based company and building in the US. And so the thing that makes us different, though, is we have architected and built our network and our systems for open access. And those of you who are here in Dallas know that in Texas, we have an open access electrical network, meaning that Encore owns the distribution to our homes, and then you have your choice of what provider you want to be as a service provider selling you the internet or the electrical service. We're building our network so that we will be the provider that owns the distribution to the homes, and we will operate the network. But we'll have multiple internet service providers who can provide you choice at your home. Today, you really don't have any choice. It's basically cable or whoever the phone company is at your location. Those are your choices. This will allow more choice for consumers, and we believe that that makes a better environment for competition and for consumers.
So tell us, what would you say would be the key benefits to the consumer from using Gigapower?
Well, choice always provides an option and helps keep prices lower for the consumers. It also gives them the ability, if there's, people have different affinities for different things, and there may be some specialized service. Maybe you're a gamer. Maybe there's a specialized service that a gaming company wants to provide, and you want to take advantage of that, and you want them to be your ISP. We'll have the option to be able to offer those kinds of services for you.
Gotcha. So as CTIO, knowing what it is that you do and your vision for what it is you're trying to accomplish, how do you deploy your efforts?
So one of the things that we are doing is, there's all the market selection and things that goes in, and we have a huge analytical team of 2. We're a startup. We truly are a startup. We are right now about 65 employees and about another 40 MPWs. We'll never probably be more than 150. We made a commitment when we were launched and created. We made a commitment in the next 3 years to build a network that will pass 1.5 million customer locations. We're doing that in multiple different markets in the U.S. Some of those have been announced. Some haven't been announced yet. The ones that are announced, Mesa, Arizona, we actually started selling in Mesa, Arizona before we were finalized as a company. So we actually, one of the cool things was we were able to send AT&T, who is our anchor customer and our first ISP, we were able to send them a bill on day one that we were a company. It's pretty cool to recognize revenue on day one. So, we're getting started, we're building. As the CTIO, I have responsibility for both the network, architecture and engineering, and also all of the IT systems. When you think about getting started, and I've been working on this project now about 18 months. So we didn't start 5 months ago. We started before that and able to get to the point where we could launch as a company. But I made a couple of rules in our work, and that was, one, we are going to be a SaaS-based company. I don't have any developers in-house. That's how we're able to stay small. And we wanted to use out-of-the-box software to do the things we need. It's a very simple thing that we're doing. We're selling to consumers, we are billing wholesale providers, and we are servicing the network. And there are a lot of companies out there who provide technology that can do those things. The two rules I put in place was, one, any customization of the out-of-the-box software had to have my approval before we customized it. Now, there are reasons to customize things, I get that, but it has to be the right reason, not just because I think this is cooler. And so that allowed us to move fast. We actually signed the contract for our business support systems in November of last year, and we had live service in April. And so we went from no CRM, no customer relationship management system, no billing system, no field services management, so the system that schedules your dispatch to go do your installation at home, all of that we started in November and we had live in April. That's like 5 months time frame. The only way to do that is to use standard interfaces and to not customize the software. We did choose TM Forum standards for our APIs because we're going to be integrating with multiple internet service providers. And so we didn't want to have a specialized integration for AT&T and another one for ISP number 2 and another one for ISP number 3. So we created a standard API layer that is based on TM Forum standards, industry standards.
So it sounds like you have some very ambitious goals. You mentioned 1.5 million customers. You have publicly declared you will acquire that in the next,
3 years.
3 years.
Or 2 years and 7 months now.
Okay. Wow, right on. So before we jump into your story and learn about you as a leader, what else do you think is worth mentioning about Gigapower?
So I've talked about the open access. That's different here in the United States. There are a few companies exploring it. We are wanting to do it at scale, and it's a model that has been mandated in Europe. There are multiple countries in Europe who have mandated that model. It's a model that makes sense. Why have 3 different companies plowing up the street in your neighborhood? Have one company provide the infrastructure, and then the 3 companies can sell on top of that. It just makes a lot of sense. And so I think that's what makes us different. We have many years of experience. I spent almost 33 years at AT&T and did a variety of jobs. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But a lot of our leadership team came from AT&T, but a lot of it didn't. We have people from other companies, and so it's really neat to be able to work together with different people from outside of the big AT&T mothership and to create something new. And the energy is just amazing.
And give us just a few highlights. We'll dig into it deeper about your role at AT&T. What was your last role there and some highlights of your career? Because I know that's been such a huge part of your identity. Absolutely.
In fact, I still struggle sometimes. Somebody asks me, where do you work? And I go, Gigapower. But my last role at AT&T was a vice president of architecture and strategic planning in 2 different places. One in consumer. I was in our consumer business support system IT organization, and I led the architecture and led the transformation of our architecture in our consumer organization that they are now implementing in the network. And then I moved into our corporate strategy organization to work on the Gigapower project. And so that was really cool to be, I think I was, of the employees, of the people that are still continuing to work on Gigapower, I think I was employee number 1 that signed the NDA 18 months ago or so. So that's really neat. But 33 years with AT&T, I like to tell people that I've done everything from construct buildings to start new businesses. This is actually the 2nd broadband company that I've started since I started working for AT&T. And at one point in time, I did have responsibility for AT&T's building construction for our network buildings. Think of them as the data centers, central offices where the network equipment reside. And then a variety of different things in between. And I think part of that is what has allowed me to do the job I'm in today. If you took my resume and stripped off the personally identifying information, and you could take it and say, we want the person that is going to be the CTIO for Gigapower to have these experiences. So it's really the perfect culmination of all my work to date to be able to pull it together and use it. I can honestly say that on a daily basis, I use things from every one of my previous assignments at AT&T, and that's really fulfilling.
And that was really awesome to learn when we had our pre-interview conversation. It was as if every experience that you had sort of uniquely equipped you for what you're doing now at Gigapower. Mm-hmm. Pretty awesome. So
it's cool.
So Amy, let's jump into more of your story and figure out who you are as a person and unpack kind of the origins and also the key experiences that shaped your personality and your character. So Amy, you are from rural Northwest Florida. What was it like growing up there?
So there were more people in my dorm at Georgia Tech than in my entire hometown. So when we say rural, we mean rural. Think cows and tractors, not sand and surf. But it was great because I grew up in an environment where everybody knew everybody. And I think that was one of the things that instilled in me the need for accountability, which I believe is one of my brand items. I believe that accountability is so important. Accountability when you do things right, accountability when you do things wrong. Because let's face it, we're all going to make mistakes. And if you don't own those mistakes and use them to figure out how to do things better, then you're not going to be successful in life. And I think because of being in that small town and knowing that whatever I did was going to get back to my parents because everybody knew everybody, it helped me understand how to live my life in a way that is accountable to me and to my parents and to the community.
Interesting. So kind of the smallness of the community acted as a forcing mechanism for transparency, which sort of shaped the way you conducted yourself. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. I know one of the very interesting stories you told me was that you took apart your alarm clock at 8 years old. Tell us that story and also reflect upon what do you think that tells us about human behavior and potential?
When I was 8 years old for Christmas, I got this cute little alarm clock. It was a wind-up alarm clock, and it was clear-faced, and you could see the gears inside. And you could also see a bunch of screws and different things. So one day, I got down on the floor in my room, and I put a towel down. I guess I don't know what made me think of putting a towel down, but that was a good thing because it kept all the parts in one place, and took it apart. And I remember my mom coming in and not being happy because it was a brand new present. I think we were probably still during Christmas break, and I was probably bored or something. And I was taking it apart, and she's like, "Well, you better put it back together." But I was curious. I wanted to know how it worked. I saw the gears moving, and I wanted to understand how the different pieces fit together. It took me a few weeks, but I got it back together. It did actually move, but I got one of the pieces backwards because it moved backwards. Needless to say, I never used the alarm clock that way, which created other challenges with my mom about getting up in the morning. But I think with me, I've always been intensely interested in how things work. How does, and it doesn't matter what it is. It can be an alarm clock. It can be, something, a software system. It can be a tractor. I grew up in a rural area, and so my dad was a businessman and had a store, but he also had a farm, and he raised cattle for us to eat and to make money off of, but also he, planted crops and things, but there was always something that needed to be fixed. And I loved tagging along with my dad, and so I learned at a young age how to do things. I learned how, the principles of physics that you learn in high school about, lever arms and how the longer it is, the more torque you can put on something. I learned that from my dad when he would be changing the tractor tire and he'd put a pipe on the end of the wrench and then go out here on the end and be able to break the seal on the lug nut and things like that. So that inquisitive nature and paying attention to what's going on and how things work and how things happen has helped me through life, and especially in my roles at AT&T. I observe and I listen and I learn from others, and it makes me a better engineer. I'm an engineer by training. I went to Georgia Tech. I have an industrial engineering degree. An industrial engineer is, process systems, that type of engineering. But I tell people that, I studied industrial engineering, but I am one. I think that is really how I am wired from the start. It was the right field of study for me, but it just fits with my personality and how I've done a lot of different things. In school, it's a little different now, but in school, in industrial engineering, we took electrical engineering classes, we took mechanical engineering classes, we took civil engineering classes, and so it was a breadth of engineering. Now, we could go deep in any one of those fields if we wanted to, but really it was the breadth that gave us the capability to operate across. We even took, programming and coding classes. So it gave me the breadth to operate in many different roles I had at AT&T.
So looking back on that experience, it seems that the story of you taking apart your alarm clock very well could have predicted what you're doing throughout your career. So what do you think that says in terms of spotting people's gifts and talents? What can we learn from that?
I think that it's important to understand, I know with my son and with others, we have to be in roles and go after things that make us happy, things that give us passion, that we're passionate about. If you're in a job that, it pays the bills and that's how you think about it, it might not be the right job or the right field for you. We need to be in roles where what we do on a day-to-day basis makes us happy. Now, I firmly believe you have to have separation between work and play. I believe in working hard and playing harder. But if you're not thinking about how to solve the challenge at work in the off time, then maybe there's a disconnect there and you're not in the right place. Now, I'm not saying that you want it to consume your off time, but everybody has different challenges at work, different problem you need to solve, some code that's not working right, some machine that's not working right, whatever the technology or the business problem. If you're even in accounting, your balance sheet isn't balancing right. If you're trying to figure out how to make it better, and what you think about always is, how do I do this better? Or how do I solve this? I think that's a key determiner that helps you understand, hey, I'm in the right place. This is what I like to do. It's not a chore. It's not just a paycheck.
So really being introspective and honest about what you're doing and if it brings you joy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I know your mother and your uncle played a very integral role in shaping your character. Tell us about what that was.
Yeah, my mother was the first one in her family to go to college, and she only went for a couple of years before she had to go back home to help the family after her father passed away. But she was very much a quiet leader. My dad, we had a great family. My dad taught me many, many things. I'm very similar to my dad. But my mom was that quiet leader that she was never out in front of other people, but she was always helping to influence and helping to be the peacemaker, whether it was in our family or in our extended family or even in some of the social events and different things. But she was always dependable, and she always, if she said she was going to do something, she did it. And she expected others to, if they said they were going to do something, to do it. And I think that accountability I learned also from her, because she held me accountable at a young age. She let me go do things that today I'm like, no way would I have done that. What was she thinking? An example of that is, and it was both of my parents, but my mom was the one who I think really pushed for this to happen. I was in band in high school, and there was this opportunity to audition for, it was the American Youth Concert Band of the South, and it was going on a 15-day European tour. I was 14 years old, and me and another friend in school, we got this harebrained idea that we wanted to go do this, and so we went and talked to our parents, and I think our parents thought that they had the exact right answer, because both sets of parents said, if the other parent says yes, then you can go. And so guess what? We got to go. And so we went. There were 4 high school students. Everybody else were college students. And we went on a 15-day tour of Europe at 14. My mom often would say, I let you go to Europe at 14 and you haven't stopped traveling. And my response to her is, thank you. Because that is true. But that she held me accountable. She expected me to be able to do that. She expected me to be mature and be able to handle being in Europe at 14 with, there were chaperones and things, but there was a lot of autonomy, and she gave me that autonomy and allowed me to stretch. My uncle was an electrician, and in fact, it was my mother's brother, and their father was the first electrical engineer in Florida. He had the first certification as an electrical engineer in the state of Florida way back about the turn of the century. But what I learned from my uncle was, by the time I came along, he was at the tail end of his career and then was retired and things, and he and my dad both had some health challenges, and so I became their hands. I would be, if they needed to, install a light in the barn, I was the one on the ladder, and they would tell me what to do and things, and so I learned from him there. But the thing he always did was he taught me how to think about things differently. He would ask me, what's 420 plus 32? Or 320? Or what's 420 times 32? And I'd go, I need some paper. He's like, no, you don't. What's 400 times 30? And I could do that. What's 30 times 2? Okay, add them together. You didn't need a piece of paper. And he taught me to think about things differently. And I think that's important today, is how do you think about things differently? Because if we think about things the same way all the time, then we get to this knot, and you can't see outside of what the norm is.
So it's like you sort of absorbed your mother's leadership qualities by observing and interacting with her. She was the quiet leader. And I think it's really interesting you had an uncle that sort of taught you how to think and really helped you think critically. So what an interesting blend of influences in your early life. Anything else you can think of that was significant when it comes to shaping your personality and character today?
I think just generally, I fully believe that we are not a product of our circumstances. We're a product of our choices. And going back to the accountability theme, I think that was very important in my upbringing, in that my parents made us accountable, held us accountable for our choices. Another fun story, when I was about 10 years old, I thought I wanted to be an attorney. And so I would write these contracts and things. And my sister was not a good student. I was always a good student. School came very easy to me. And so I would never bring books home. I'd always finish my homework while we were in class. And so we had this difference at home. My sister struggled in school. Academics were not her thing. And so when I was about 10 years old, she had gotten, like all B's on her report card. And, my parents rewarded her by getting her this little 13-inch black and white TV to go in her room. And I'm going, what? Wait, I've never made a B. Where's my TV? And they talked to me. She's like, you're capable of doing more. When you do more, you'll get something. And so I thought I'd be cute. And it was time to clean our rooms, and so we were supposed to be cleaning our rooms, and I told my sister, hey, I'll clean your room today if you'll give me the TV for 2 weeks. And I wrote up this little contract and got her to sign it, and I cleaned her room, and so I got the TV, and then after a couple of days, she was like, I want my TV back. I'm like, no, we have a contract. And she went crying to my mom, and guess what? My mom said, you signed a contract. She gets to keep the TV. Now, I got grounded for manipulating my sister, as I should have, I should have gotten, but my parents held us accountable and taught us life lessons that I think are important, were important in shaping me.
Amy, let's jump now into the keys to success here. And the first topic I want to talk about is women in technology and business, something I know you're very passionate about. And before we jump into this topic, I first want to ask for patience and grace from the audience. If I inadvertently phrase something that is sort of politically incorrect, it's just simply I'm trying to arrive at the truth of it. So with that being said, let's proceed with the conversation. Everyone okay with this? Yeah. All right. We've all opted in. All right. So Amy, there are far less women in technology than men. Why do you think this is?
I think we as a culture have not done enough to make technology something that everybody should be equal in. And what I mean by that is, if you go back to 1983, that is where the peak of the number of women graduating with computer science degrees occurred. Since 1983, that number declined steadily. In the last few years, it's gone back up, but it peaked there. Now, if you think back in time, what happened in the early 80s? What was happening in the early 80s that was starting? The gaming industry. And my parents were great. We had an Atari. We had, we played the games and things, but the gaming industry started creating games that weren't appealing to girls because the first games were sports related or first-person shooter type games, and that didn't appeal to girls. And so then it became, okay, computers and gaming and stuff is for boys. Even my mom, and as y'all can, I hope, understand how much I value my mom and loved my mom, and she was a great mom. Even my mom as a child, I always for Christmas, and this is a foreign concept to most of you in the room, but there used to, back way before the internet, there was a Sears and Roebuck catalog that came out, and they had their Christmas wish book. And as a kid, you'd get it out and you'd write down all the stuff you wanted and give your mom your Christmas list. And I always put on there an erector set and Legos and things like that. I never got those because those were boys' toys. And my mom later in life said, I know I tried to make you not like all those things, and I finally realized that that's you. You think that way, you understand that way, and I shouldn't have done that. And she was always very proud of my engineering and my school and everything and pushed me very hard in that. But I think as a society, we, for a period of time in the 80s and 90s, didn't really value and didn't create an environment where women thought that they could be in technology. When I started at AT&T in 1990, and there was one other woman in a group of 30 people that I hired into. Now, the hiring class that we hired was probably 60% women, so they were starting to hire, but it was very male-dominated. Many, many times in my career, I have been the only woman in the room, or maybe one of two women in the room. It was not until January of 2020, so 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago. It was not until January of 2020 that I went to a business dinner that was all, comparable level people that were all women. And it dawned on me sitting there at the table, I'm like, and it was an SVP from a company that was one of the ones we were working with, a VP, and then 2 VPs from AT&T, and we were all women. And that was the first time in 30 years that had happened. And it really was kind of poignant to me that, we are making progress, things are changing, but we've got to make them move faster.
So what would you say are some of the important nuances about being a woman in business that are not often talked about or perhaps even taboo?
Early in my career as a woman in business, there was, one seat at the table, or as you'd move up, there was maybe one opportunity for a woman and things. And so there was a lot of infighting. You saw women putting other women down, and that, quite frankly, is wrong. We have to lift each other up, men and women. Putting someone else down so that you rise is the wrong way to try to be a leader. If everybody rises, then that's what makes a company successful. That's what makes everybody successful. And so I've seen a lot more of that now. Early in my career, I thought, I can do this. I don't need to have a women's group. I don't need to go to the women of AT&T. And I was wrong. I needed that support group. I needed that group of people working and helping each other and being the advocate when you're not in the room. A lot of women, a lot of things used to happen in business on the golf course. A lot of women don't play golf. So things were happening where women weren't. Decisions were being made where people weren't. And so I think that it's important to lift each other up. And there was a leadership thing that I went to a few years ago, and they said, while you're being pulled up, pull someone with you. And so, as you're being helped by a mentor or a champion, you be the champion for someone else. And I really, that was a kind of shaping thing for me. I think it's important to be that person that is helping others achieve what they want to achieve.
What would you say is a limiting perspective that you have seen women hold that you'd like to dispel now?
I'm not qualified for that. I think too many times women will look at a job or look at a role and say, I can do most of that, but I can't do that one thing. It's like, well, if you can do 95% of it, try it and learn the other 5%. I think women too many times think that they need to be perfect. And some of that is cultural upbringing, at least in the United States. Girls are taught to, you got to be prim and proper. You have to, dress nicely. You have to, be neat. You can't get dirty and things. And that has kind of ingrained in society that, well, I got to be perfect. And so maybe I can't do that. And so not taking the chance, not believing in yourself to take the chance and say, hey, I can do that. And the part that I don't know, I'll learn. And I think guys have been, ingrained to, more speak out and reach and say that they can do it. And I think that holds people back, because I think a lot of times women won't put in for jobs because they feel like maybe I can't do that or I'm not good enough.
So create a new mantra. What would you like to say? How would you reverse that? If there's something that you could say right now that would forever change that mentality, what would you say?
Take the risk. Believe in yourself and take the risk.
Awesome. And what else would you say that you have done differently as a woman to succeed in both technology and business?
I think that one of the things that I have tried to always do is learn. If I'm in a role and I'm the expert in that role, then I can't be the leader, because the leader is the person who needs to be helping remove roadblocks for the team. And whether that's a role where I'm a peer leader leading a team of peers, or a leader leading a team of subordinates, I don't want to be the one that's the expert in the technology, the expert in the process, the expert in that, because then I start doing the work and I can't help the team be better as a team. When I got promoted to be a VP at AT&T, I moved. They trusted me and believed in me and moved me into an IT role, and I had never had an IT role before in my career. Now, I'm a system engineer, and I'd been around IT and things, but I had never been in IT before in my career. And some people were like, why'd they put her there? And others were asking me, isn't this hard? How are you doing this? You've never done this before. And what I learned by it is it was the perfect position to learn the new role, because I wasn't the expert. And I had to rely on my team and listen to them. They were the experts, and they were damn good. They were really good. It was AT&T's network cloud organization, and they were great. And it allowed me to come in and be the leader that supported them, that was their champion, that went and got the funds they needed, that did the leadership things. If I had been the one that was the expert in OpenStack technology and knew how to build their pipeline, then I would have been trying to tell them how to do their job, and that's not a leader's job. The leader's job is to empower their team and enable the team to be successful.
So before we close on some final thoughts about leadership, give our audience in attendance some advice for every woman in technology and business. And we have many here. So what is your advice for them?
My advice is, like I just said previously, take the risk. If there's a role that you believe that you can do, and a role that you're interested in that will bring you joy and that will be something that you can do, take the risk. Believe in yourself and go do that. For anybody, I would say, doing a variety of different things allows you to hone skills in different areas. And the more you build different skills, the more valuable you are in a variety of different places. If you stay laser focused, there are some people that's what brings them joy. They want to be laser focused and want to do one thing. But others, and especially if you're looking to move up into leadership, you need to have a variety of different experiences so that you can operate in different environments, so that you can overcome different obstacles. If you stay in one area, you get a little myopic in your thought process.
So take the risk.
Take the risk.
Be open to new opportunities. It is actually beneficial to you to have a well-rounded experience that can come together later on for a different opportunity.
Yes.
Love it. Awesome. So, Amy, you're really one of the strongest leaders I think I've met, right? So, first off, give us a definition. What is your best definition of the word leadership? Enabling
people's entities or groups to accomplish things that they didn't think were possible.
So it's about enabling other people in groups to accomplish things they didn't think is possible. Interesting. Let's hold that definition. Now, so make the case with that definition there. Why would anyone here who's not in a leadership or managerial position, let's say individual contributor, want to grow their leadership skills?
So leadership comes in is useful in a variety of places. If you're an individual contributor, you may be a developer, you may be working on a Scrum team. Now, yeah, you have your piece of code that you're working on, but that Scrum team needs to be successful together to create the whole base of code that works. And so leadership is being able to express your ideas and express your opinions in a way that allows the team to understand and potentially accept those ideas and move on. Leadership is also being able to listen and understand when somebody else's idea is a better idea than the one you have. It helps the whole team go accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
Give us a key, because I know one of the things that was very important to you was developing the skill of challenging the norm in a respectful but effective way. So what is that?
We get stuck in our ways of doing things. If you're if you're in a job for a long time and you get stuck in and you do the same thing over and over again, that becomes the norm. And that becomes how you've always done it. Well, there may be a new technology or a new idea or a new person that comes to the team that has a different idea, and if we're not used to challenging the norm, everybody talks about continuous improvement. Well, continuous improvement to me is challenging the norm, challenging the status quo. I don't want to change just for the sake of change, but what are we doing? Is it still the right thing to do? Is there a new technology that's come out that we need to change and do something differently? Has the dynamics of the team changed that we need to change something? But it needs to be about the work. When it becomes about the person and you're challenging a person, that's where it's not right. And so that's why I say respectfully challenge the norm or challenge the status quo. You have to challenge the thought, not the thinker. You challenge, the process, not the person. It needs to be about the work.
That's what it was. Objectifying the thing, making it about the process, not the person. You take the personal element out of it. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's great advice. So Amy, we're almost out of time, so I want to close with a couple more questions. So if there's one thing that we all here can do, regardless of our discipline, regardless where we are in our career, what's the one thing we can do to further cultivate ourselves as leaders?
I think learn, always learn. Read about a variety of different things. I like to read biographies of leaders, of other people. I also like to read books about how to be a better leader, how to be more successful, things of that nature. Learning is very important. The other thing is taking care of yourself. 10 years ago, that wouldn't have been coming out of my mouth because I wasn't. I am a better leader today. I'm a better friend. I'm a better mom. I'm a better person because I started taking care of myself. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't be a good employee. You can't be a good partner, a good spouse, And so when I learned that and started doing that, that was a very important conversation I had with my CEO, my boss today now. Who he knew me before and had been a part of my journey and to get more healthy and things. And when we talked about me joining this startup, and in a startup world, that's long hours and a lot of work and stuff. And I told him, I said, I want to do this, but I will not go back. And so on my calendar, I have time for Pilates blocked out. I go twice a week at 7 a.m., which means I'm not in the office until about 9 o'clock those days. Now, I can take calls while I'm getting dressed and driving into the office, but it's on my calendar. I made the time to put it on my calendar. And one of my peers who was new to the organization, he's like, hey, Amy, do you know you have your personal stuff, it's showing your calendar? I said, yeah, that's intentional because I'm taking time to take care of myself. And I expect my employees to take time to take care of themselves because they're better employees for me and for us if they do.
So take care of yourself and always keep learning. Mm-hmm. I love that. So Amy, the show is called Pathways to Success. What is your personal definition of success?
Success is having people around you that love you, finding joy in what you do, and always having fun.
I love it. Amy, this was a tremendous conversation. I'm so glad that you were on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
If you would, Amy, go straight into this camera here. Tell us how to connect with you, support everything that you do. Tell us all that.
So I am on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I am also a part of Tech Titans, which is the Technology Association of North Texas. And we are a technology organization. We've actually been in this space before. Some of you might have been in the session we had in this space before. It is very much an open environment, an environment to meet with other like-minded people. And so you can find me there as well.
And we'll make sure to have all that in the show notes as well. So Amy, this has been a true pleasure. Thank you for being on. And everyone else, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Pathways to Success. As always, make sure to subscribe, comment, and share. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Pathways to Success.